one of my favorite rock bands, Rush, is touring again. This is awesome. I've been a big fan of Rush since I was in high school. And Rush is a very interesting band to me. They're like a progressive rock band, maybe a heavy metal band to some degree, but really more of a progressive rock band. This is a band that is three guys right there in the picture: Geddy Lee on the right, Alex Lifeson, and Neil Peart. Neil Peart passed away about what was it? I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Neil Peart was widely considered one of the best drummers in rock and roll history, maybe even in music history. He was a savant. I mean, and he was the lyricist of this band. And the band had just really complex lyrics that you would never hear. I mean, most rock bands, have songs about, getting drunk and hooking up with girls and all that. And these guys would talk about deeply philosophical topics. The song "The Trees" is one of my favorites by Rush, where it talks a little bit kind of about income inequality, which we talk about in our podcast. And their take on it was that the way we reduce income inequality is that we make everyone smaller, because in the song "The Trees," there were tall trees that were blocking all the light, and the smaller trees felt oppressed, and they demanded that they get equal light. And then by providing everyone equal light, they took a hatchet, axe, and saw and cut them all down. Really interesting lyrics that have come from Neil Peart. There's a lot of Ayn Rand influence, objectivism influence, particularly in their songs in the 1970s. I had a chance to finally go see him in 2013 at the San Diego Sports Arena. And what an incredible show. I mean, Neil was alive then. I had a great time. Well, they're back now. And it was interesting because when Neil passed away, everyone assumed, oh, well, they could never tour again. I mean, it's like Led Zeppelin losing John Bonham. It will never be Rush. And it was Neil Peart was so revered that it was almost like you couldn't possibly put a different drummer into that chair. It would be sacrilegious if you did that. Well, the story is that Alex and Geddy were at the tribute show for Taylor Hawkins. Remember, he was the drummer for the Foo Fighters that committed suicide. And they had this big concert. I don't know if it was either in the LA Forum or up at the crypto.com center. And they invited Alex and Geddy, and they jammed on stage with all these other, uber all-star musicians and had a great time. And I still follow a lot of Geddy and Alex's content online, and they're just really good guys. I mean, they're sweet guys. They're kind of nerdy guys. Gene Simmons from Kiss would often talk about how in the early days, Rush was one of their opening bands. And, the guys from Kiss were all like hooking up with girls and drinking whiskey, and they go into the hotel room where the three Rush guys were, and they'd be in there kind of reading books or, just kind of in their own peaceful solitude or working on other sorts of projects. They were nerds to a large degree, but magnificent artists. And I know I just kind of felt a certain kinship with them. Because of their nerddom, because I love their music and the progressive rock, because of the Ayn Rand objectivism influence, and because they were just such outstanding musicians, particularly Neil Peart. Well, things have finally changed. They've got a new drummer, and her name is Anika Nilles. And this is crazy. I mean, so now Rush is going to be touring with a female drummer, which now normally you wouldn't say, what big deal, female drummer. Okay, is it a gimmick? Whatever. First of all, this woman is legit pro. She was touring with Jeff Beck. I guess Jeff Beck's one of the guys on the Jeff Beck crew was a bass tech for Geddy Lee and recommended her. And they ended up having a jam session with her, and she just fit right in. But what's interesting is when you go to a Rush concert, it is the biggest frickin' sausage fest. I mean, it is like 90% men. But there are all these dudes that just love Rush for everything that Rush is about, and I try to get my wife interested in Rush, and they're just too heavy for her. They don't kind of get it all. I understand that. But so it's neat that they're going to have a female drummer on this show, and they're going to tour, and they're going to have make it a real big Neil Peart tribute, which I think is just going to be fantastic. I'm just so happy. And I'm thinking about going to some of these shows. They're going to be, I think, in LA, and there's a few other places, and they've created space in the calendar. So it's not like they're doing like a 50 city world tour. They only have a handful of cities, but they're going to have like a temporary residency set up there where they might play 4 or 5 shows, or if the demand is such, they might play 10. And it's not cool. I mean, and so Geddy and Alex are just so, they're just, Geddy is giddy and Alex is giddy that they get to gig again. They get to tour again. And so I'm really pleased to hear from the whole Rush Nation that no one's down on this. I was afraid there are people saying, yo, you can't replace Neil. Who is this woman that's going to be drumming? There's been none of that. I mean, everyone's been embracing the thing, and I think it's just so freaking awesome. So Rush is back, and it's just so great. So tickets are expensive. I mean, nosebleed seats are probably going to be $300 to $500, and I don't know. I mean, I remember back in, 15 years ago, as I was getting older, I was going to a lot less concerts. And I said to myself, there are 3 shows that I really want to see. Rush was one, and I got to see Rush. The second one was Tom Petty, who tragically passed away before I had a chance to see him. I should have seen him at Kaboo when he was playing at Del Mar, but I didn't go to that show, and I'm kicking myself for it. The third band that I really want to see, I had a chance to see them, and COVID ruined the show. It was Hall & Oates. I love Daryl Hall and John Oates. And Hall & Oates had a show at the amphitheater in Chula Vista, and my wife got tickets, and we were going to go backstage and meet him, and I was like really fired up. And then COVID hit. The show was canceled. But now Hall & Oates have broken up. I mean, they've had a really bitter divorce. My understanding is that John Hall was trying to sell some of his publishing rights of his portion of the portfolio to other people. And Daryl Hall was really angry because he didn't want his publishing rights in the hands of other people and him starting to lose control, because when it was just Hall and Oates, it was a tightly knit, controlled situation. And that's created this big fight between the two of them. And now I don't think I'm ever going to see them perform again. So we're going to miss Hall and Oates. I miss Tom Petty, but I did get to see Rush. There's still a chance I might go to see one of their shows. Maybe just make a road trip somewhere and check them out. I think that'd be really good. Ed Franklin on the live stream. Oh my God, another geriatric band. Love them in the 80s. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, but there's some geriatric bands that are way past their prime. These guys won't. I mean, they won't tour unless they're legit. And I have confidence they're going to be terrific. And then, by the way, I mentioned Gene Simmons and Kiss. Maybe you heard the news. Ace Frehley passed away. That's a bummer. He was Ace Frehley, the spaceman, was the lead guitarist for Kiss. He was Kiss was mainly the 2 main guys, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. Ace Frehley and Peter Criss were the other 2, Peter Criss. And they were sort of in and out of the band, especially in the latter years. But Ace Frehley apparently had a studio in his home, and he was, in his studio, in the place that he loved. And he fell. And I don't know if he hit his head or whatever. He went to the hospital and he ended up passing away. It's really tragic, very sad. That news, I think, broke yesterday. So, but Rush and Kiss are often linked if you kind of go back in rock and roll history. So that, in my opinion, is good news. And by the way, Ed, I do have good news. SB 79 was good news. That's good news too. Okay, let's keep on trucking.